A familiar passage is in Galatians 5, where the Apostle Paul speaks of the works of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. And we're going to look at, this is in chapter 5 of Galatians, we're going to look at the fruit of the Spirit and what he says in these few verses here, starting in verse 22. So he's just gone through what the works of the flesh are, and these are all things that come from self-centeredness, from self-seeking, the things that James says are based upon a wisdom that does not come from above, which is earthly, sensual, and he even says it's demonic. So the fruit of the Spirit, though, is something different. He says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love. Now, I want you to understand is usually we list out all these things, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, all this, but put a colon after love. The fruit of the Spirit is love. Why is that? Because God is love, as John tells us. So when he says the fruit of the Spirit is love, the things that come after that, they're all descriptions. This is him describing what love looks like, the things that love includes, which in here, in this version, are joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. These are the attributes and the characteristics of love. Love involves all of these things, and it brings forth all of these things. Okay, so this is really important understanding that the fruit of the Spirit is love, meaning that as you truly grow in this fruit, in the Spirit, you become love. This is what God intended from the beginning. Remember, in the beginning, he created man, male and female, in his likeness and his image. And God being love means he created us to be love, to walk in love, to exhibit the same characteristics and nature that he is. We were made in the likeness and image of God, meaning your fundamental nature and likeness, your actual state of being, is like God. Okay, now we don't always exhibit that. That's why he talks about the works of the flesh. Where does that come from? And we could trace that all the way back into the garden. We could trace it back to the notion of separation, of being alienated, distinct, separate from God. What does that produce? Wrong thinking. Wrong thinking produces all of those works that he describes as works of the flesh. But being connected to, having your life, your being, your breath, everything rooted and shaped in God, that you are truly in him, which is where you're created. When you realize that and you think from that, love is the fruit of that, the fruit of the Spirit. So as he goes on, he says, now in verse 24, and those who are Christ's, truly knowing it, not just that you are, whether you know it or not, you are Christ, but this is an awareness. Those that know this, those who are Christ, have crucified the flesh. What does that mean? Die to self, die to the things of the flesh, the works of the flesh. It's like in Romans 6, he says to reckon yourself dead unto sin. So if I still see myself alive to the flesh, if I still see myself as just a sinner, then what does that produce? More of the same works. So when my identity is shaped by Christ and his work, what he has accomplished, and the revelation of grace and truth that came through Christ Jesus, then those things die, and I say, that's not who I am. I get to identify with my true nature, which actually is love. And now I'm able to grow in the Spirit, connected to, in union, in oneness, instruction from and with God. So he says, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Okay, so verse 24, back up again. Those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and its desires, because if I live in the Spirit, then I'm going to walk in the Spirit. The connection here is truly living that connected life in the Spirit, integrated into that union with God in wholeness and oneness. What comes forth? Good fruit. That's what happens. That's what he's telling us here. And so that we don't walk according to the passions and the desires of the flesh, the things that come forth from seeing myself as separate, distinct, alienated enemy of God, but rather see my integration, my wholeness, my oneness, my union with Him. And the fruit of that truly is love, the very nature, character, and likeness of God.